You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. On this episode, I'm very happy to finally cover this man. It was somebody I had came across after Michael Meyer. And interesting enough, he is actually someone before Michael Meyer, which is another reason why I kind of wanted to cover him. He is another man with a bunch of books and an emblem book, Heinrich Khunrath. And this is going to be 2 episodes. We're going to cover a little bit about him and some of his works and some of the books he had wrote. And we will focus a little bit on one of his books at the end. And then the next episode we will be covering his emblem book. Another reason why I was very happy to finally be able to cover this is because I was lucky enough to be able to go down to Yale and actually look at some of his books. And it was pretty impressive. I mean, they're very old. And, you know, the interesting thing about his emblem book, a little bit, you know, on Myers, I remember the thing is when we mentioned his emblems, it was pretty much accepted that it was probably not correct order and that you would actually have to, like, figure out the order. With Heinrich's emblems, and I know this to be a fact because Yale had 2 copies of the book that we're going to cover, Amphitheater. They were different. And even on the website, by the time this drops, will be on the website. You can even go and look on the Occult Research Institute. His books will be in there, and there should even be a section for him as well under people who came before us. You can see how there is a difference in between the 2 books. What I had experienced with the 2 that I had, and I think I could be wrong, but I think at the dates of the books that I had, there might only be like 7 of them left or 6 or something like that. I can say the 2 that I had were definitely different. The things would either start in a different part of the book and not be in the same order. So, definite difference. So I did find that interesting. So I mean, and it's funny that it almost makes me feel like Ninth Gate-ish type.
I was just gonna say that, almost like, do you need all 6 to kind of solve a riddle or something?
It was what was his name, Dean Corso or something like that.
Mm-hmm,
Johnny Depp. He was researching for Balkan.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting how I was like, wow, I was like, this is like really something like that to where it's not even in the same order, and the book wasn't like, I had one in these books, and you'll see as going forward that there are one that are like spheres. I forgot what they call them, plates or whatever. I have it in my notes. And then he has like these big, you know, square ones, and those were like, some of them were not in the same order. In one book, you might have had a few, and then went straight into the book, and then you had the emblems at the end. Another one, I think, like it was like all at the front, and then a few at the. It definitely was different. And you can see the difference, again, like I said, on the site. By the time this drops, when there is a difference, I will show the pictures side by side showing you how there's a difference in pages, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, we will be covering that in episode 2. And another thing that I'm, like, kind of excited about, episode 2, you probably won't even see our faces, or maybe very little. With the amount of, like, video and photographs that I have on the book, I really would like to be able to play that the whole time that we are covering it. And since the photography and the video is in 4K quality, I could actually technically make this a real 4K video. I could do that now with a 1080p. There's even other people that I know, they do the same thing. They sharpen a 1080p, they say it's 4K, or you render it in 4K. It fits on your TV, but it's still not going to look all that great. But it tells YouTube it's 4K, and people think that might help with getting clicks, especially when they're monetized. So this I can actually make and put it in real 4K. So if anybody actually wanted to play it on their TV, it will actually look really good. I'm sure nobody's really going to do that, but I'm happy to know that I was able to put out something of video quality like that, to where if somebody wanted to actually enjoy and sit down and watch it, you on a big screen, you will see decent, video quality on this book. And also, not to like pat myself on the back, but I think when it comes to these emblems, if you were to go look up these books online, and I think basically like it's probably Yale and maybe one other place might have like the whole book to be able to look at with PDFs. You're not going to be able to see the amount of detail and stuff, especially like on the square type emblems. I mean, there's like tiny little towns in the background and like people doing their own things. There's so much stuff that, my opinion, you can't see that from the other sites. And I did like close-ups and decent quality pictures. So, I'm proud of that like at least if people will go check it out on here, or if you go check it out on the site, in my opinion, you might have a better shot at getting an idea of what these emblems are about, because you can actually see everything that's in it. That's a problem, and I really do believe another reason why I was interested in looking at this man's work is because I do believe that these people understood that language could be a problem and a barrier, and that the art would take care of that. So I wanted to focus heavily on the art and be able to make sure everybody can see what's going on in there if they wish to delve into these emblems and try to get something out of it. I guess really that's enough out of me. We're already 7 minutes in almost, and we haven't even started. I got Lisa with me as usual. I mean, that would be expected and or suspected with the type of topic. Just makes sense. We both work very well together, and I love covering these topics with her. It goes rather well. And
Ditto.
Yeah, we both get to learn, so it's good stuff. And plus, like, again, you're very organized, so...
Thank you.
With these
I appreciate
topics,
that.
it helps to do it
They
organized.
Do. Yes, very much so. I think so. I was really excited when you asked me about Heinrich Khunrath. As you kind of dive into it, I had no idea that they consider him to be the link between D and Rosicrucianism.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. So I was like, wow, this is very interesting.
Yeah, that's another thing too. He has associations with D. Some people might try to argue that. My opinion, I think it's more accepted that he did meet D than some other people. I don't know. It's funny. It's like I feel like some people, when they deny stuff like this, it's like, well, I didn't get to meet John D, so how could he?
Right, exactly.
Like
no.
they're both dead. Does it really matter? I mean, like
Right,
anybody, like
exactly.
people are gonna like Heinrich more, even though he's dead, and it doesn't matter because he might have met
Right.
John D or not. But but the thing is, it could be of importance if it really was, though. So,
I think so.
but then again, I mean, like I said, I find these things interesting, but at the end of the day, to an extent, knowing all this stuff doesn't tell you what magic is anyway. But see, the thing is what sucks about this is that having a magical experience, though, will make the art seem so different than I think, like, you'll understand. I don't know how to explain. It really does make a huge difference.
I think on some level the backstory is good, just because it's kind of like with what they say with the mile, that nobody could break the 4-minute mile rule, and then somebody ran it, and all of a sudden everybody's running it. So I think when you hear about these people having these experiences and their path towards mysticism and discovering mysticism for themselves, any kind of study into the occult as well, it makes it possible. It brings to mind in your brain that you can do it too. So
yeah. And I think, like, overall, again, the whole thing, I guess, is the message and not the messenger as well,
Correct.
And I think, like, I think me and you might have been saying that's, like, seems to be the problem nowadays. It's the messenger that gets more focused than the message.
Right. And it should always be the opposite. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think he had some really interesting stuff. I think he was probably, I believe he probably understood magic to an extent. He had magical experiences, especially with his art. I do believe that he was somebody who, an alchemist back in the day, a real alchemist. Put it that way. And I guess we'll get into it. Again, I'm gonna throw up some slides. I'm gonna be honest. Until we get to the book Lux at the end, I'm just gonna be kind of like just going through the slides as we're talking. We will cover some of the books, maybe as we're covering them. If they happen to be up at the same time, we'll luck out. But I'm really just focusing on the one at the end, mainly because I took the pictures for that too. So it looks good, but yeah, because we'll touch a little bit on that, and then, like I said, in the next episode, we will be much more on just that one book. So we'll get into it, and this is again Heinrich Khunrath. He was born in they say September 9th, 1560, and he died supposedly September 9th, 1605. So he really didn't even kind of lived at a young age there, I would say. But then again, I mean, there's somebody else we covered. Like, would they die like almost in their 30s?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
He lived pretty. I guess he had a good life compared to that dude.
Well, he accomplished a lot in such a little amount of time.
He was a notable German figure of the late 16th century, revered as not only as a physician but also as a Hermetic philosopher and alchemist. His work held significance in bridging the realms of John Dee's philosophy and the emergence of Rosicrucianism. It is worth noting that the name Heinrich Khunrath, which would be Kunraht instead of Kunrath, was adopted as a pseudonym by the publisher of Baroque Spinoza's Tacticus Theologico Politicus in 1670. Just wanted to add that because I think that was like even another thing. I think some people have questioned like not that he wasn't real, but like how accurate was that name? Was like a made up name. So Khunrath, born in 1560 in Dresden, Saxony, was the son of a merchant, Sebastian Khunrath. See, then that's spelled different. So obviously, I mean, this guy's played games with his name. And Anna. He had a brother, Konrad Khunrath. Konrad was a German merchant, alchemist, mint worker, doctor, author, editor, and translator. A little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, like if these people were like real occultists and they actually had magical experiences, that would make sense because it's like, yeah, you're just doing that because you're bored. Like you're doing that so you don't like lose your mind and think about dumb shit.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, plus, like, again, we didn't have iPhones. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what iPhones took away.
Yeah. He is particularly important as the author of Medulla Distillaratia, a work of Paracelsian, God, this word, iatrochemistry, and that is using alchemy to provide chemical solutions to diseases and medical ailments, which was published in many editions for well over a century. So, I found that interesting how his brother, you know, has a little bit in there too. Heinrich Khunrath enrolled at the University of in Leipzig in 1570 under the name Heinrich Conrad Lips.
What a last name.
Yeah. And that adds to the mystery surrounding his life due to his use of multiple aliases, like I said before. However, his definitive academic milestone came in May 1588 when he enrolled at the University of Basel in Switzerland. I feel like we hear Basel a lot.
I think, yeah. And most of these guys we've covered.
His dedication was evident as he earned his medicine doctor degree on September 3rd, 1588, after defending 28 doctoral theses.
That's a lot.
Love those numbers. Where, you know, we just recently did a show. Wasn't there something where it might have been the Space Force? Wasn't Mike talking about how like there was like some place that on the 88th year it like switched control like twice, like flipped back and forth? I think
I believe it was.
For some reason, I think 1588 might have been one of the years.
He mentioned 88 over and over. Mm-hmm. I don't remember specific, but it was something to do with years.
Yeah. Whatever. It's off topic. Wasting time. Sorry. Just thought. Khunrath, a follower of Paracelsus practiced medicine in Dresden, Magdeburg, and Hamburg, and potentially served as a professor in Leipzig, if I'm saying that correctly. His travels after 1588 took him to various places, including a place at the Imperial Court in Prague, where Rudolf II, a Holy Roman Emperor with a keen interest in mysticism, resided. You know, that's interesting. That you know, it's like I hate to even say it because it makes me sound like some like cocky, like rich fuck, and I'm not. And it probably wouldn't be for a long time or a few years because, you know, I just went to Italy. But I went to Italy. I mean, half of it was a vacation, but like the other part, like I actually had in mind and had made deals with my wife, believe it or not. There were certain things that you'd get to do if I could do because I wanted to actually record shit for the podcast. As silly as that is, part of me going to Italy was like literally recording the Vatican because I wanted to share it with people and cover it. Prague may actually be the next like crazy thing that I do.
That would be amazing.
I've been coming across a lot of stuff like tying to Prague and like they even
especially.
Yeah, they even consider Prague as like being like one of the like cities that's like on the closest veil to the abyss.
Oh.
I was like, God damn.
It does seem like it was the Mecca for a lot of occultists and mystics, that they were all traveling to that one area.
Yeah, and it's just like, besides, I just feel like that's like another country where it's like, oh, Putin and snow, you know, in Siberia. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I just feel like Russia's like, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but like, we don't hear much like about their type of history in this sense.
No.
So
No, we don't.
I thought like for that, like, and again, it's not like, oh, this motherfucker just wants to go to Russia. No, it's literally because I don't know jack shit about it. I couldn't tell you like what the architecture looks like, you know, all their stuff. So to me, it'd be like, you know, a whole new world for me to look at that stuff. I mean, then again, I may never go, but it's been a thought. And
no, it's very beautiful. I've never been, but I've seen pictures. It's very beautiful. Prague is very beautiful.
I'll think when it takes me 2 years to finally cover the Vatican with the recordings that I have, then I'll think. Yeah. No, actually,
yeah,
believe it or not, that should be happening sooner than later. Unfortunately, that's going to happen before Yale. Believe it or not, because it's just easier probably for me to cover with Yale. First, I'm going to release the Nashville footage that I have that I think me, Headless, and Lisa were going to cover that together. And that was going to be another, like, kind of like, that will be in 4K as well. Probably won't even see our faces, and it'll be a complete video documentary talking about the history of the buildings. I mean, Headless talking about the occult symbolism. That will be done, and then finally I will hit the Vatican, and then hopefully back to Yale. But, yeah, that's the play. And I'm going to shut up and get back to the notes. All right. Khunrath crossed paths prior to Prague. Khunrath crossed paths with the renowned John Dee in Bremen on the 27th of May, 1589. Amidst Dee's homeward journey from Bohemia, so supposedly Dee was going home from Bohemia. That's when he met him. Khunrath, I think he had written Dee a bunch of times too. And he was like pretty interested in the guy, supposedly. At the court, he encountered the alchemist Edward Kelly, who had stayed on following his separation from Dee. Kelly he ended up getting arrested on April 30th, 1591, under suspicions of impersonation. That's another thing, like not to get too huge into it. And one day I would probably really like to cover both those guys. I do find that I do think one was really just a scam artist or an opportunist, and the other one was actually a magician. And by September 1591, Khunrath secured the position of court healer for Count Rosenberg in Trebona. It is likely that he encountered Johann Thold while in Trebona, an individual believed to be associated with the authorship of the alchemical works attributed to Basilius Valentinus. The 12 Keys of Basil Valentine is a widely reproduced alchemical book attributed to Basil Valentine. It was first published in 1599 by Johann, who is likely the book's true author. It is presented as a sequence of alchemical operations encoded allegorically in words to which images have been added. The first Basil Valentine book to discuss the keys is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, a short summary tract of the Great Stone of the Ancients from 1599. The 1599 edition does not include illustrations. This is something that's interesting. Woodcuts appear in the 1602 edition. Revised engravings for all 12 steps appear in Tripus Aureus, so that might sound a little familiar. The Golden Tripod, which was 1618, Michael Meyer. So that is actually another thing that I might be doing in the future. One thing I did set up finally, I actually set it up today. Should have a date. Another thing, all these coming attractions here. We'll be covering Michael Myers emblems with 7 Degrees of Wisdom, Megan, and Mario. And then I eventually wanted to possibly cover these because these were done by the same artist that Michael Myers used for his books. That Matthias dude. I can't remember the name offhand. But, I mean, honestly, I guess I do like his art. I don't know, for some reason I really do like his style and the way it looks. So I think that's why it kind of like catches my attention. But they seem like I thought it was some pretty cool looking stuff. So that might be on the table too. May not actually be covering them, but might just go over them with Megan and Mario, more than likely. But yeah, I did think that was pretty cool. And again, like, you know, you see how like, you got again, I find it interesting, and I would like to like really wish I could find out more about these artists. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be, because like here's one that's like work was like kind of reused for something else. I don't know. The guy seemed to get around a little bit due to his artwork, and I assume it's probably because, you know, if you're going to be a magician or an occultist and you want to use this person's stuff, it's probably because they understand it as well, and their art is correct to get across the point that they want to get across. I should have said that the first time. But, yeah, that's why I think it's rather interesting with these artists. And, you know, unfortunately, you can't, the few that I tried to look into, you don't hear much about them. But I don't know, maybe they weren't that important, but I just feel like they were in the know a little bit more, and I'm sure they're probably around, you know, the circle of people if they're getting asked to do art for them.
Yeah.
Khunrath's encounters with John Dee and Thold, again, if I'm saying that correctly, I could be saying it wrong, as well as his embrace on Paracelsian beliefs, spurred the development of Christianized natural magic. In his quest for the elusive prima materia that promised eternal wisdom, he integrated Lutheran theology into his mystical pursuits. That I thought was another interesting thing before Lisa goes, just real quick. Again, there's that Lutheran stuff that came up with Michael Meyer.
It did. I wonder if it's because it's all based in Germany. That's where Martin Luther was kind of based out of, I believe. Yeah. But going to the point of John Dee, I think it's interesting what they claim if they met. It's interesting how they met. And just to kind of give you a little bit of backstory on Dee and where he was, you know, in his like timeline of his life. So John Dee and Edward Kelly had just completed their 5-year trek through Europe, and they ended their tour in the Czech Republic. So at this point in time, they're going to go, Dee's going back home, and Dee assumes that Kelly is going back to England with him. But Kelly ends up staying behind. And as you mentioned, John Dee sets out and leaves Bohemia to return home. And it's on this return home that at the same time, after his graduation of 1588, Khunrath is starting to travel, and he's en route to Prague. And it's at this point in time when they claim that he runs into John Dee in Bremen in May of 1589. So some scholars, they're kind of divided, or some report two different things. They say the Khunrath went to meet John Dee because there had been correspondence back and forth, and that the meeting was pre-made. And then there's another school of thought that they say that it was a chance encounter, that they were both on the same trek crossing paths, as one was leaving, the other one was coming, and that it was more serendipitous than it was planned.
I could believe that too, believe it or not, as silly as that sounds. I could
believe it too. If everybody was traveling the same, path.
I mean, even another thing too, as silly as this sounds, like not everybody was like even had the opportunity to even be doing all this. Right. So like now, what I'm trying to get at is that like you're trying to spot somebody out in the middle of a New York City subway. Yeah, good luck, Yeah. But like I'm just saying, like I'm sure like it might have been like just even less people around to actually like see or be like, oh wait, that's so and so down there walking, down at that other train cart. Silly as that sounds, but I do actually believe it might be possible like that actually did by chance happen.
I do think, and then plus there wasn't a whole lot of back roads. I think it was like one main road that everybody would travel down. And at the time, there's probably one stop in an area where everybody was stopping over or laying over.
That's the whole other thing too. Just even like the modes of getting there, a lot less options, very limited to like it's just this is how you're getting there.
Right.
At one point, like when like the Mormons were coming over here, you had I think 2 boats as an option, depending on where you were coming from. If you're leaving from Liverpool, there was only 2 boats that I think that was bringing people over here. You didn't have much of an option. You had to wait on either one of them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, it's true. And to kind of squeeze everyone in together in that 1-2 boat. But Khunrath was heading to Prague, and he was going for the same reason that Kelly was there, for Rudolph II. So he wanted to hold audience for Rudolph II and potentially met Dee on his homeward journey back home. So Khunrath would then travel on to stay at the court of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II von Habsburg in Prague, and also ends up meeting Kelly, as you mentioned, because Kelly had stayed on, who was also in attendance there at the court at the same time. So two important things that I wanted to make mention, because they say that maybe Dee did not meet Khunrath, maybe he did. A couple of points that I read that I thought was important to mention is that it's a little bit of backstory too. According to Dee's spiritual diary, let me back up. I wanted to kind of set the stage as to where Dee was in his frame of mind at the point in time when Khunrath meets him, if he met him, right? I think he did. But I wanted to kind of place the audience into where was Dee in his mind at that point. So according to his spiritual diary, Dee writes that Kelly had achieved the Philosopher's Stone in 1587, and he gave a public demonstration of it in Trebona. So while most scholars and a lot of historians say, to your point about Kelly, that he was more of a trickster and not really serious and kind of, flamboyant of the way he acted.
He was like a street magician.
Yes.
And the other guy was an occultist.
Yeah. Like they referred to Dee as more of an academic, as more polished, more, like a thinker. And then
the other guy was like Chris Angel.
Trickster. Yes. Like a joker kind of, always putting on a show. And so because they had this whole, idea about him that he was a trickster, that he could have tricked people, this public demonstration allows for eyewitnesses to account that he does have the Philosopher's Stone or achieves the Philosopher's Stone. And so following this, Dee and Kelly part ways. So you almost wonder what happened, right? That Kelly demonstrates a Philosopher's Stone. And then Dee also writes that Kelly showed him the secret to the Philosopher's Stone. And he writes that in his diary. So in his diary, he only mentions that he showed him the Philosopher's Stone, but never describes it. And that's kind of the case with others, isn't it? That they say, oh, he achieved it or I achieved it, but they never say what or what it looks like. Or
I think, in my honest opinion, I think a lot of it is like I achieved the experience of magic. And I think it's something that you actually have to sit down and explain to the person. And again, those same thing, I'm not saying it's necessarily the same thing, but like a lot of the stuff we covered with these saints. Well, some of the you gotta give your verbal or write it down, whatever. What did you see? What did you experience? And then we'll determine if it's right or not. I mean, again, maybe that's like not even, they shouldn't be doing that either. But I mean, I don't know. But like, I do think, my opinion, there's specific markers that if you were to ask questions, I think 9 times out of 10 there will be certain things that will pop up that these people can be like, all right, You may not have had these, but you had these, and that's like very, I think they'll know if someone's bullshitting or not. I really do think. It's just my opinion. I think people have had these experiences just from conversating with somebody. They'll know, Right. Especially if you're not leading them and they're actually just telling you and you're not giving them the shit to say. Yeah, I think you'll definitely find out.
Well, and then also if he saw that Kelly achieved the Philosopher's Stone in public, and then Kelly tells him how or the secret to it, you never really hear that Dee pursues to attempt it himself, which I find a little odd. Or maybe he did and never wrote about it. I don't know, but you don't really see a whole lot of writings that Dee, because I think he kept 2 different diaries, and in his spiritual diary he never really says that he achieved it. So I thought that was interesting to mention. So the meeting between Khunrath and Dee would prove influential, because Khunrath would later, as he became, further on in his career, he became appointed physician and close supporter of Rudolph II. But he starts writing and writes extensively, and would go on to quote Dee extensively throughout his work, constantly, and pointing to the fact that he held Dee in extreme high regard. So So a lot of the stuff that you read has Dee's quotes and attributed to him all over the place.
Yes, definitely. I think I have stuff that might even say that later on too. So you think it happened? You think they met?
I think they did. I think they did. Yeah.
This is how I would like to believe it went down.
Yeah.
Is that Heinrich Khunrath was chilling somewhere. He got a hotel somewhere. John Dee showed up, and he's like, "Yo, it's Dee." And Heinrich's like, "Dee who?" And John Dee's like, "Dee's fucking nuts, bro." It's your fucking boy John Dee. Answer the door. I'd love to know. I'd really be happy to know that John Dee was the first guy who started off these nuts jokes. That would make me so happy.
Oh my God, that's
fucking stupid. Fuck. You said John Dee before, Dee's nuts went through my head. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with me?
He's waiting for this enlightened conversation, and he opens up with that.
Yeah, it's this dude talking stupid shit. These nuts. He doesn't even know what nuts means. It's not even used like that yet. John Dee's it's the 1600s. He thinks his phone's vibrating in his pocket. And it's we don't even have iPhones yet, dude.
Oh my God, my face hurts.
God, all right.
Yeah.
All right, now it's my turn. Sorry about that. People just shut it off now.
That was awesome.
If you're still listening, I appreciate it.
You heard it here first. This is how it went down. We're calling it now.
These nuts. Oh God, his first. Oh man, his first writing. I wonder if this is actually what I'm showing up on the screen. It might be. I don't know the spelling of these books. His first writing, De Signatura Rerum Naturalium thesis, published in Basel in 1588. Khunrath explored the concept of Signatura Rerum, which translate to the signature of things. According to this theory, the external appearance of natural objects reflect their internal essence or force. In other words, the visible features of things serve as signs or symbols of their hidden properties. On the signature of things consists of 28 theses. These theses are considered a precious document of the academic recognition of the Paracelsian alchemical interpretation of nature in the Basel medical faculty. They also support the revolutionary Paracelsian call for a reform of medicine. I think that's interesting.
Regarding this thesis on the signature of natural things, so for this specific time period, it would be probably the first, but definitely a rare example of a physician promoting the doctrines of the revolutionary itrochemist Paracelsus at the Academy. And the reason for that is because Paracelsus had taught at this exact same academy that Khunrath was graduating from. And it was the one that he got kicked out of. Remember, we covered Paracelsus in that he was burning books and he was talking all kinds of crap, trash, and what have you. And, you know, he was basically the nonconformist of his time. And I think he even got ousted by the whole town and said, you can't come back. So for Khunrath to come out and start promoting the teachings and the actual, you know, interpretations from Paracelsus, that was, I think, huge in and of itself.
He called somebody a shill and he got canceled by the sheep.
Oh man. But yeah.
All right. Upholding the significance of experience and observation in alchemical exploration, Khunrath approached his work as both an alchemist and a natural philosopher. His renowned piece, it's the one that we're going to cover in part 2, the Amphitheaterum Septien, I'm not even going to try, delves into the esoteric realms of alchemy, encapsulating his spiritual interpretation of the craft. It also features the iconic engraving, which is like probably one of the biggest known in the book, the first stage of the great work, commonly known as the Alchemist's Laboratory. Yeah, I can go back to that while you're talking on that. Maybe.
Yeah. So to place in context, I'm not going to spoil it because we got a lot of juicy stuff for the episode too. But to kind of place into context, the Amphitheater, it was published in 1595, and it is said to be influenced by Dee's Monas Hieroglyphica, which was published earlier in 1564. So because of this influence, Khunrath's Amphitheater is going to contain the 3 sacred languages, the Pythagorean Neoplatonic Kabbalah influence, but the only difference is that the Amphitheater is infused with physical alchemy. And so there's kind of a bit of a discrepancy, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is kind of what I gathered from reading the stuff that I did, in that Dee's work was largely spiritual alchemy, and yet Khunrath's work was more physical alchemy centric. And as you read some of these alchemists that were influenced by Dee, most of them are physical alchemists, and yet Dee's more of a theoretical type alchemist or spiritual alchemist. So it seems a little bit analogous to kind of see that influence. And I don't think that he had a lot of success with physical alchemy, if I read correctly. And there really wasn't him pursuing a whole lot of that angle with alchemy. So like in 1580, when he was traveling, he was lecturing, collecting books, and, you know, kind of, talking on alchemy, but there was really little interest being shown in physical alchemy. And again, if I'm wrong, interpreted the wrong thing, I just found that to be very, very odd. And I think it's really cool because they probably took what he wrote and then applied it or took it to that next step in my opinion. But I believe he's more often regarded as a theoretical alchemist, and that Monas Hieroglyphica is best or more effectively viewed when you look at it through a more philosophical lens or spiritual lens. And of course, I'm drawing from the conclusion that, because I think in Dee's correspondence, letter to Maximilian, I think it was, that he refers to this interpretation of the Monas as a discussion on the creation of the universe. So that's very theoretical, I think, or more philosophical. And like it touches on like sacred geometry and so forth, but it's not very lab based. Like it's not very physical based. So it to me, I found that pretty interesting. But there are similarities. I mean, between the work of Dee and Khunrath. Khunrath makes the same and quotes Dee's distinction between the real and spoken Kabbalah. He uses the same Greek associations with the eternal real world of being, or the Kabbalah of being, and is associating that with Neoplatonic world of perfect forms to a more transmutable world of becoming. to where everything changes into something else. So that those two things were similar in their work. Khunrath extensively quotes Dee, and I think we kind of went through that. But there was an inscription in Monas Hieroglyphica that Dee was kind of upset with people that had taken his work and didn't give him credit or didn't acknowledge him. And I wonder if in this chance meeting, Khunrath, that Dee was in that state of mind where he's upset, Kelly's done all this success and people have not given him credit, and maybe kind of impresses upon Khunrath during this meeting of what happened, and it left a lasting impression with Khunrath, and maybe that's why he quoted him and made sure to quote him and give him that credit. That's my interpretation on that one.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done. The amphitheater's illustrations are unparalleled in their detailed and complex depictions, earning recognition as some of the most significant mystical drawings globally. They serve as a surreal landscape and initiatory journeys akin to a magical ascent reminiscent of Christian Rosicruci's tomb in the Fama. This is like, kind of like a famous person, I guess, who looks up books and stuff. Jacques Van Lennep compares them to visual mazes and logographs, constituting the first Paracelsian illustrative cycle, marking a milestone in the evolution of alchemical symbolism. This man's opinion. Noteworthy for their historical importance in alchemical imagery, these illustrations predate renowned alchemical emblem books like those by Michael Meyer, Johann Daniel Milius, and Daniel Stolzius, showcasing a level of sophistication surpassing their predecessors such as Arnold of Villanova's Rosarium Philosophorum series from 1550 or Petrus Bonus Pretioso Margarita Novella in 1546. Some of those people and those things that we mentioned, don't be surprised one day if we cover one of those, because I already started looking at them too.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have like this. We have this, which is going to be 2 parts. We're going to record that this week. And like, because of somebody else that I came across, I already have like another episode set up from somebody. Yeah, this worked out well. This was like 3 shows for one covering this guy. One thing I did want to mention too, and I'm sure I'll probably end up mentioning it later on, but like you had mentioned the date for the book, and the book that I had looked at was a 1609 date when it was eventually printed again. So I think there's like, even in the older version, there's even might be less of those.
Yeah, I believe it said there's like only like 2 or 3 of those. And then the other one, there's less, but the first one was, very, very rare.
Guess how much the 1609 one goes for? I think there's 1 or 2 people that are selling them. I looked them up.
How much?
$20,000.
Oh my gosh.
For his amphitheater book. For the 1609. I could be wrong. Wait, I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's definitely $20,000.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's rare. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's handwritten. How's that? It wasn't print. You know.
I guess like if you had the money and you were like, if you're some loaded fuck, and you had like, you had like money and investments, and you were into this stuff, I could see someone like that, because like, if you buy the book, odds are I don't think the value of it's going to depreciate. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or it might stay the same. So like, I could see like it being an investment, and then you're taking advantage of being able to see it. But like, I could just never imagine. It was like $20,000 book just sitting up on my bookshelf. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, because I wanted it. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, it's like the only way I could justify that is knowing that, like, well, maybe if I hold on to it for 10 years, I could sell it for 25. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's like real
I got to justify, like, a gains on this.
Big gains.
Yeah, I just couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Balkan type shit again from the Ninth Gate.
Mm-hmm.
The amphitheater exists in 2 main versions, known for their rarity and distinctive features. One version, dated back to 1595, it is extremely scarce with only 4 existing printed copies. On the other hand, a larger and enlarged 1609 edition is more widely available, commonly housed in the rare book collections of prominent libraries globally. And that was one that I looked at. And that one, like I said, definitely the two different books were different. One that I actually thought was crazy is like putting them, like the books didn't even kind of like look the same. They were the same size, and one even had like straps on it, and the other one didn't. And like, what was crazy is I was like, I'm taking them out of like the boxes and stuff, and I have the two books next to each other, and like before I opened them up, like I knew it was them because I had them. I went twice for this stuff, so you guys better watch the damn fucking second part. This drove about probably about 8 hours complete, with 2 trips to go to this place. Yeah, fuck. So, I mean, hey, I got the footage anyway, so I'm happy with it. Doesn't matter. But fuck, where was I going with that? I didn't even think the books were actually the same thing. I was like, oh wait, I think they brought me the wrong book, and then I was like, oh fuck, this is the same one. Yeah, like one almost looked kind of thinner than the other one, but I don't think it was. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like you could definitely see a difference in the books. Mm-hmm. Although, the 1595 edition, comprising 25 pages, showcases uniqueness through hand-colored circular theosophical figures, accompanied by explaining stuff, trying to explain it, and adding a rich layer of depth and intrigue. Although no place or publisher is given on the title page, Hamburg is the most likely place of publication, as all 4 engravings bear the inscription: Heinrich Khunrath of Leipzig, lover of theosophy and doctor of medicine, inventor by the grace of God. Paulus von der Dort Antwerp engraved this in Hamburg in the year 1595, since the birth of Christ, in the month of April, and whatever. So, I mean, the person who's engraving it seemed to have made it sound like it was done in whatever over there. The engraver Paul or Peter van Dort or Dost served as the superintendent of the Dutch poor in Hamburg during that period. His portfolio features a diverse array of works, such as vivid portrayal of the Holy Family. And if I remember correctly, I think I actually looked up some of his work. It's pretty wild. Some of it is. A detailed rendering of sailing ship and a picturesque view of Hamburg, capturing individuals adorned in period-appropriate attire. Notably, the unique perspective of the fourth figure was meticulously crafted by Hans Vredeman de Vries, a highly regarded Netherlandish artist, draftsman, and an authority in perspectival drawing and architectural design. De Vries, renowned for his influential publication Theatrum Vitae Humanae, which was in 1577, made a significant move from Gdańsk to Hamburg in 1595. Following his involvement in fortification designs and paintings within Gdańsk Court of Artists, the Red Room of Town Hall, and several local churches. His journey to Hamburg possibly overlapped with encounters with Khunrath before he continued on to adorn chambers at the Imperial Palace in Prague. Again, Prague. Khunrath's intricate illustrations and teachings gained widespread recognition with the release of an expanded edition in Hanau in 1609. I'm assuming that's what I had. These alchemical classics seamlessly melds Christian symbolism with magical elements, showcasing Khunrath's expertise in spiritual alchemy and intricate journey towards enlightenment. Noteworthy, within Lutheran circles, his work influenced prominent figures like Johann Arndt, who dissected the Amphitheatrum in his writings on devotion. Khunrath's musing at times hinting at Kabbalistic theories subtly foreshadowed the emergence of Rosicrucian ideals.
Kind of like what we mentioned, what I said at the beginning. So it was the Renaissance historian Francis Yates that that stated that they consider Khunrath the link between the philosophy of John Dee and Rosicrucian or Rosicrucian ideals. And the book that they attribute this to was the Amphitheater. And so Amphitheater, probably saying that wrong, the English version of the Latin name. So we kind of talked about at the beginning of the episode that Amphitheater was largely influenced by Monas Hieroglyphica. And so when you associate that with the Monas, you kind of see that it's a Kabbalah-based. Well, I think what it was is that the reason that they consider Monas Hieroglyphica with Kabbalah-based physical alchemy is because of the Amphitheater. If Amphitheater was influenced by Monas and Amphitheater is very largely physical alchemy, that's where they kind of draw that conclusion that it's a Kabbalah-based physical alchemy. And the theme on it not only influences Rosicrucianism, but it goes on for several hundreds of years, also influencing the founding members of the original Order of the Golden Dawn, which I thought is very, it transcends time. It goes on to continue and influence a lot of other secret societies that end up coming up throughout the ages. So Khunrath may or may not have encountered some opposition to his alchemical work, mainly because most of his publications on alchemy were published widely after his death. And they say that he died on the 9th of September, 1605 in either Dresden or Leipzig. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I don't.
The tension between spirituality and experiment in Amphitheater, Sapientiae Aeterniae, brought about its condemnation by the Sorbonne in 1625. So another famous writing of his is the Universal Tertriune Christian Kabbalist, Divinely Magical, and Physico-Chemical Amphitheater of the Only True Eternal Wisdom. It is a theosophical treatise that serves as a commentary on specific verses from the Solomonic texts of the Bible. Within this work, Khunrath aims to elucidate his method of correct philosophizing through a mystical ladder of 7 orthodox grades. It is regarded as one of the most significant texts in the expansive realm of theosophical alchemy and occult sciences, which I thought was pretty cool to get that title.
Yeah. For some reason, I can't remember the show where I was questioning if the ladder had like 7 rungs, or could it be maybe a different amount of numbers. I could be wrong with that. It didn't, but for some reason something came up where I think we're looking at something with like a ladder with 7 things on it. I don't know. I could be wrong. That just sounded familiar though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry. Was that? Oh, you finished?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Heinrich Khunrath's Confessio di Cao Physico Chemicorum Catholico is a work written in Latin and published in 1596. In this text, Khunrath explores alchemical and mystical themes. I'm going to break down the title a little bit. Confessio di Cao Physico Chemicorum Catholico, whatever. This translates to confession concerning the universal physical chemical chaos. It suggests an exploration of fundamental principles in alchemy. Azoth, sive materia prima mundi, mercurius sapientum. The term azoth refers to the universal solvent of quintessence in alchemy. And I'm pretty sure we talked about that in the Red Heifer too, right?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact.
Yes. It symbolizes the transformative power that can purify and transmute base substances. Materia prima mundi means the prime matter of the world, often associated with the elusive substance from which all things originate. Mercurius sapientum refers to the philosophical Mercury, another alchemical concept. And then you have ubi magnesi, whatever. That part indicates that the work discusses the conditions related to magnesia, likely referring to the Philosopher's stone and its properties. So basically, Khunrath's Confessio delves into alchemical philosophy, exploring concepts like Azoth, the prima materia, and the Philosopher's Stone. It's a fascinating glimpse into the mystical and transformative aspects of early modern alchemy.
So it seems like we've talked about Azoth a couple of times. We talked about it in the Red Heifer, and then we also talked about it when we covered Paracelsus in the Grimoire, when we covered the Grimoire that was allegedly tied to him, the Archdoxus Magica. And so Azoth, just to kind of go back and commit it to memory, that's why I'm repeating this in my head, but is that it's, like you said, it's the universal solvent, and it's the universal cure and the elixir of life. And it's supposed to embody all medicines. One of the reasons I wanted to go into a little bit of Azoth is because it is claimed that Paracelsus, again tying in the Paracelsus influence with Khunrath, is said to have achieved the Azoth in the 1567 Rosicrucian portrait. The pommel of his sword bears the inscription Azoth. So you continuously see this Azoth theme throughout Paracelsus, and then on into Rosicrucianism. The first part of that grimoire, the Archdoxus Magica, bears the title Liber Azoth, which contains the magical sigils, recipes for protection against illnesses and injuries. And it's another term for the Philosopher's Stone. So Azoth is believed to be the animating energy of the body and the enthusiasm that moves the mind. It's the mysterious evolutionary force that drives the physical and spiritual towards perfection. It is the light of nature, or the mind of God. And I'll talk briefly on the light of God here in one of Khunrath's books. But I find that pretty interesting because the etymology kind of traces Azoth to medieval Latin as a modification for Azok, which is derived from the Arabic word, the mercury, going back to your mercurial mention as well in terms of an alchemical concept. So, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. And then the next one, just this name. Luckily, I'm not trying to pronounce it in the way it was written. This is the translation. Universal magnesia of the philosophers. The highest necessity in alchemy, practical guidance for overcoming obstacles, and sufficient proof of the hidden Catholic magnesia. Concerning the secret, miraculous universal stone, according to the true principles of philosophers. In this writing, Khunrath distinguishes between two primal matters: magnesia, the universal primal matter, and chaos, the primal matter of metals. I find that interesting how like chaos just includes metals.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's all the shit that grounds you.
Well, it's funny because I would think that in terms of like chemistry, basic chemistry, that metal is the organization of the chemical. By being hardened, hardened together collectively.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption, but it's not. It's almost like the alchemy or the dissolving of the metal or transmutation of the metal is the liberation of the actual chemical element into something else. So yeah, the whole chaos coming into concept is pretty cool.
Yeah. His Christianized view combines natural magic with Lutheran theology, seeking the secret prima materia that leads to eternal wisdom. Khunrath emphasizes experience and observation in alchemical research. He has another book called True Account of the Philosophical Ad Hanor and its use and benefits. This rare text discusses the alchemical furnace known as the Athanor and its practical applications. It was first published in 1595 and later reprinted in 1615. The book provides insights into alchemical processes and symbolism associated with the Athenor. Khunrath's alchemical interests span a broad spectrum, ranging from traditional medieval transmutational art of gold making through investigation of the properties of plants to the use of chemical medicines made from toxic substances like minerals and metals. His alchemical work, Questions Trace, there's 3 questions, that was done in 1607, discusses philosophical saline solutions of gems and stones as treatment for tartar-related ailments, which was a major concern of Paracelsian physicians. He is also interested in laboratory technology and writes of his invention of a special alchemical furnace with a transparent glass cover in the Truthful Report Concerning the Philosophical Athenor in 1599. And the same consideration of the importance of the fire for alchemy also appears in De Ingen Magorium, something else, in 1608. With the term physico-chemical introduced in amphitheater, that word was introduced in the amphitheater, Khunrath is emphasizing his interest in the investigation of the properties of matter and the secrets of nature as a complement to his engagement in physical medicine. At the same time, in the very same work, Khunrath talks about the consideration of alchemy as a model for personal spiritual transformation. So I find it interesting how this guy does maybe due to that, his spiritual and magical experience, maybe you're able to see it now unfold in everything else.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I really liked about Heinrich is that everybody's talking about theoretical, everybody's talking about all this philosophical, spiritual, whatever. He was in the lab trying to make it tangible, or he was at least trying to do that and document the ability to. Yeah.
When it comes to allegorical images, Khunrath demonstrates a clear preference for illustrating the alchemical process, both through words and imagery. His renowned work on primordial chaos is brimming with allusions to green and red lions, salamanders, basilisks, and phoenixes. The circular figure 3 within the amphitheater stands out as a prime example of elaborate alchemical symbolism, showcasing the hermaphrodite rebus and the complex Hermes bird, entwined with mentions of lion's blood, white eagle's water, and virgin's milk. Interesting. Noteworthy, too, is the rectangular engraving portraying the alchemical citadel, featuring various creatures such as the grand dragon perched atop the Philosopher's Stone, a smaller dragon nestled in the pool below, as well as iconic depictions of serpents consuming each other's tail to signify the volatile and fixed elements of the process, and the Ouroboros representing both eternity and the cosmos. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of Manly P. Hall, Orders of the Great Work, Alchemy. That would be the book, Orders of the Great Work, and then Alchemy. I think there's might be a few other versions after Orders of the Great Work, but this is the Alchemy one. And he does write a little bit up about our man Heinrich Khunrath over here. And this is how it goes. The name of Dr. John Dee occasionally occurs in association with persons involved in the Universal Reformation. Dee resented certain comments on his book, Monas Hieroglyphica, made by Andreas Lebesgue, and entered into a mild controversy with him. Lebesgue first attacked and then defended the early Rosicrucian manifestos. Dr. Dee emerged as an astrologer, an ardent spiritualist, magician, and with a profound knowledge of Hermetic mystery. Though it has been difficult to determine his correct place in the descent of the esoteric tradition, Dee is known also to have acquaintance of Henry Khunrath, a mystical alchemist of distinction. Eliphas Levi refers to Khunrath as a sovereign prince of the Rosy Cross, worthy in all respects of the scientific and mystical title. So, I mean, I guess if that's correct, Eliphas Levi thought that Khunrath obviously knew what was up to an extent.
Yeah, it seemed like it was.
You know, and again, like, the art itself, I'm assuming somebody who understands this stuff when they come across it and be like, oh, they get it too. It's another reason why I think, like, the art is big. Again, like,
Well,
you
said it
goes beyond
perfectly
language.
that there you go, perfect. It transcends language. You don't need a translator. So
Yeah, that's why, like, I one time, I mean, I know it sounded silly, but, like, when I was wondering about, like, Rosicrucianism, and not so much that, but, like, I wonder if there's anything that ever, like, you're considered, like, you're a member because you understand, like, the literature going around. That's hard to explain, but, like, you know, like, if you really, like, understand, like, the coding and what's in the art, or maybe, like, what's being written in the books, if you understand it differently than everybody else does, I mean, I don't know.
I think also you have to kind of put yourself back in that time when so many different countries were right next to each other and everyone spoke a different language, and you had so many people coming from Middle East or, you know, Asia, up from, you know, Egypt or whatever, and everyone's convening, you know, and you're needing a translator, you're needing something, and you know something's lost in translation. What could be provided that does not get lost in translation? And it's like what you said, it's art. Art isn't lost in translation, it just is. You don't, you know, it transcends language.
It also says in here with Manly Pupil, Heinrich Khunrath, a doctor of divinity and of medicine, an amateur de sagesse, is reported to have attained the 6th degree of Hermetic initiation, which brought him to the threshold of adeptship. His principal contribution to the literature of mysteries was Amphitheatrum Sepent. How do you say that? The amphitheater. Several phantom editions of this work are referred to by early writers. Some of these probably exist, as I have examined the copy date in 1605. The Amphitheatrum opens with an argument setting forth the 7 grades of the Theosophical wisdom, and Khunrath's observations upon the matter of those grades are no doubt responsible for Levy's unqualified endorsement. Unqualified. That's funny. As is usual of suspected initiates, few particulars are available of the life and activities of Henry Khunrath. He was born in Saxony about 1555, traveled extensively, and held doctorate of medicine from the University of Basel. In several respects, his career paralleled the eccentric pattern previously established by Paracelsus, to whose writings Khunrath was profoundly indebted. Like the immortal Bombastus, the German physician was by temperament irritable and eccentric, and was given to a broad criticism of existing religious and educational institutions. Khunrath appears to have been a devout Protestant, and his natural color was considerably softened by a devotional spirit. He was initiated by a German adept named Steiner, of whom nothing is known except that he was working in 1574 and left some writings which were edited and compiled by a later alchemist.
Yeah. Manly P. Hall kind of uses a lot of Khunrath stuff, and I'll mention it here in a little bit. But so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how this kind of parallels, which you kind of mentioned, parallels to the life of Paracelsus. In that, so Paracelsus is like, you know, the alchemical physician that's, you know, merging chemistry with medicine. Merging chemistry with medicine for medical purposes. And yet he somewhat would try to distance himself from transmutational alchemy, which is kind of weird because, you know, it's pretty much the criteria with merging chemistry with medicine itself. But he still held the view that both the alchemist and the physician possess the ability to transform and purify elements and metals, which is transmutational alchemy. and the human body as well. So that's medical alchemy. And so it's odd because we see how Khunrath took Dee's spiritual alchemy and used it in the laboratory as physical alchemy. So you're seeing kind of that movement between the two within these two, I would say, both alchemists. So just as Paracelsus was a pioneer in marrying science to medicine through the methods of applying chemistry, Khunrath too. I mean, another thing that he did, he melded Christian symbolism with magical elements to kind of ultimately marry alchemy and philosophical thought. So, and he's kind of known for that.
Mm-hmm. Khunrath practiced medicine. First at Hamburg, and again, this is all coming from Manly P. Hall, so like some of it may sound like it's repeating myself. I'm just repeating the whole little thing. Khunrath practiced medicine first at Hamburg and later at Dresden. He was not especially successful as a practitioner, probably due to his disposition, and he died the 9th of September, 1601, at the age of about 45 years. The amphitheatrum is said to have been among Khunrath's manuscripts and was presented to the world through the industry of his friend Erasmus Wolfart, who added a preface. The book is remarkable for a magnificent series of engravings setting forth the mysteries of Christian Kabbalism and alchemy. These plates were engraved in Antwerp, and several of them are dated 1602. The book presents many confusing details and suggests that it was compiled by a group with diversified resources.
You mentioned the phrase Christian Kabbalism. So the phrase Christian Kabbalah is said to have been first used by Khunrath. And even though you can trace it back to Pico de Mirandola and Agrippa, I think it is Khunrath that uses the phrase Christian Kabbalah explicitly to mean exactly that. And he also uses the phrase divine magic. And so that's where you see the two phrases pop up extensively in that time period.
The Christian Kabbalah, that was the first time it was ever printed on the front cover of a book, was him.
Yes.
It had been talked about, like you said, you were correct, with Pico. He talked about it, but it was not on the front cover of the book. It was inside the book.
Yeah.
It's a difference, especially when you want to start, like I was the first. You can get very picky.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was the first one to put it on the side of the book, now on the front of the book.
Yeah. This was a big deal back then.
No, but I mean, it's impressive regardless. I mean, still,
No, but yeah.
All right, let me get back to my notes. Certain of Khunrath's diagrams with modifications reoccur in later works, claiming to have originated in the sanctum of the Rosy Cross. This mystic citizen of the Eternal Kingdom, as he has been called, was evidently familiar to Michael Meyer, and Khunrath's name has also been linked with Dukes of Brunswick, who took such kindly interest in the career of Johann Valentin Andrea. The interlocking careers of most, if not all, of early Rosicrucian apologists stimulate reflection. Jacob Bohm, the psychochemical mystic, received his illumination about the time of Khunrath's death and inherited the principal concepts with which Khunrath was concerned. The Hermetic doctrine, as unfolded in the amphitheatrum, is a kind of Christian yoga. The path of initiation begins with purification, the cleansing of the inner life, and with realization that illumination is possible only to those who have purified their consciousness of all worldliness. It's impressive. The second step is a discipline for controlling the sensory perceptions and the attainment of an inner stillness, by which the human soul is rendered capable of receiving in meekness and humility the light of the eternal. The true stone of the philosopher is the transmuted and regenerated soul of man, which not only attains to its own perfection, but can also bestow itself and its power upon other creatures. Thus, the powers of the Christian soul become the universal medicine by which all impure nature attains to health and eternal life in God through Christ. Thus, the world is made flesh by the mystery of art. The Hermetic elixir is truth itself, which, revealed in the human's heart, perfects nature. The adept is the living stone which, rejected by those who build in darkness, becomes, by the glory of God, the head of the corner. Many of the alchemists, especially those of the previous century, emphasized the physical transmutation of metals and spent their goods in the quest of temporal wealth. Khunrath does not appear to conflict with the testimony of the great masters who preceded him, but he really emphasized a doctrine already cautiously circulated but frequently overlooked by avarice gold makers. By this emphasis, he exposed the genuine proportions of the Albigensian heresy. These persecuted mystics taught a way of divine union. The regeneration of man and his institutions could be attained only by symbolic resurrection. The soul, when lifted up to God by illumination, drew all other mundane things unto itself. Only the perfected man could rescue his mortal institutions. Thus, in the Rosartum Philosophorum, the consummation of the great work is symbolized by the resurrection of Christ, crowned with glory, who is depicted stepping from a sepulchre from which a heavy lid has been rolled away. The association of Kabbalism, alchemy, and transcendental magic with the emblems of Christian redemption did not originate in the 16th or 17th century, but was rescued at that time from the lost gnosis. The esoteric tradition merely emerged as the operative key to a faith which had languished for centuries in a state of general benignness. I think that's what that's. The mysteries always operated through two parallel streams of descent. The philosophical orders emphasized the wisdom aspect of the universal mystery. The mystical orders stressed the devotional aspect. Thus, understanding and faith, identical in content, accomplished two works in one. Through understanding, the initiate overcame the illusion of worldliness, and through faith, he attained a participation in the substance of the divine.
I like that.
And that is the end of what Manly P. Hall said. I know a lot of it kind of eventually took off on its own, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless what the man was saying in there.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Manly P. Hall mentions Khunrath in his lectures on ancient philosophy that he published as a companion to Secret Teachings. And in there, he talks about that there was like a small group of adepts that had withdrawn from the order. And he was I believe he was referring to the Order of the Golden and Rose Cross that was made up of like alchemists, Rosicrucians, Kabbalists, magicians. And they had kind of remained inactive. And they ended up retiring to what they termed House of the Holy Spirit. This was where these adepts were said to be enveloped in certain mists. I wonder if you get this where you get mysticism. Impenetrable to the eyes of the profane. And among these reclusive adepts, as Hall would refer to them, was Heinrich Khunrath, as well as Michael Meyer and Robert Flood, which I believe we will cover in the future.
Oh yeah, did we start him actually? Yeah, we're like halfway done with him too. Halfway done.
I
with
think so.
Else,
yeah. And so they lack the solidarity of a divine fraternity, but they would occasionally still have initiations of candidates and annually meet at a specified place. So they were kind of like their own, but would come together every now and then. They wouldn't be super organized, but they would still meet. So one of Khunrath's plates in the amphitheater appears in the Mystery of the Three Worlds chapter of Hall's Man, the Grand Symbol of Mysteries. And it's funny because I think you sent me a picture and I was like, I've seen that picture before. And it was in Manly P. Hall's book, Man, which is the Grand Symbol of Mysteries book. And it illustrates the philosophical androgyny that Hall discusses, and also in Hall's The All-Seeing Eye monthly magazine. More in depth, we'll go into it in the next episode. But it's interesting that Hall refers to Khunrath with these to kind of depict what he's trying to talk about in these two chapters. I found it very interesting because it kind of, if once you read the little bit of description, which we'll talk about next episode, and then you look at that plate, you're like, whoa, wow, yeah, that's interesting. I get what Hall's trying to say now, just by looking at the plate that Khunrath had. So, and then as I was looking up, because I was like, oh, well, let me see if I can get a copy of Secret Teachings. I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that the CIA.gov website has a PDF of the Secret Teachings?
Oh,
I thought that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
You can get it off of their website. So it's pretty interesting.
It's like a tracker.
So, do what?
It's a tracker, but I mean, at that point, it's like so many people who like don't know jack shit about anything could have downloaded it.
Yeah,
it could have sounded
true.
Interesting to somebody and they never read it.
Yeah,
but
yeah. But so a little bit about Lux, Khunrath's Lux.
real quick before we go into it, I just want to say again, these are photos that I took. They will look a lot better on the site just because of the size and stuff, due to YouTube and streaming, the way this looks. I mean, even if I do it like this, it really doesn't make much of a difference. But, this part of the show, if you're watching it, these pictures that I took, they will be up on the website. They will be a lot bigger. And another thing I wanted to add is that eventually, within another week or two, I will be going back to Yale to take pictures of other stuff. But I think I already forgot. I got to check the list. But there was one or two books that I was interested in. And then there was a whole bunch of different pieces of art that was just one or two papers. Or a book that was 18 pages or 20 pages and was all art. I'm hoping to actually be able to grab a bunch of those at the same time and just spend 3 hours there and just take pictures the whole time in video. And if that works out, there should be a ton of stuff coming on Occult Research Institute with this type of stuff. Like I said, besides this book and Amphitheater, I'm going to have that stuff. And not to have a shameless plug for the site, I myself, I've been busy with a lot of other things, and I'm actually have stuff on the site. I just haven't dropped it yet, technically. But I mean, there has been other people who recently, in the last month or two, has actually been doing a lot. So I would highly suggest to go, check that out. There are a few people on there that eventually they will be adding. But there is Brandy's been going nonstop with a lot of stuff. Like she's putting whatever she used on other people's podcasts, those notes, kind of like what we do. She's dumping the whole thing on the site. So I mean, you basically have episodes that she's done on our show and other shows, just in her notes. The notes she used to cover the show, there it is, pictures and everything. Yeah, it's done and it's readable. You know what I'm saying? You can read along with it. Ethan Indigo, a bunch of stuff. Oh God, who's my boy with the AI guy? How did I forget his name? Oh man, I love his stuff too.
Oh my goodness.
Leon. How the hell did I forget that? Southgate too. Yeah, he even said himself that it would be a good name for an occultist. Lion in Southgate.
No, he's been dropping a bunch of stuff too, and him and Ethan also have been doing extensive work, as well as Brandy.
Megan does too, but she never tells me about it until weeks afterwards. She'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've been editing my videos." I was like, "Oh, you should have told me." But yeah, there is actually stuff being added on there. I'll be totally honest with you. Not that I don't forget about it. It's just I don't know. I just forget about trying to promote it. I really should work on it more. I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why I feel stupid trying to promote it. Because a lot of people I don't know, whatever. I think I'm trying to be a dick. I've already had stupid shit said to me about it already. So it's my vanity project. If it was my vanity project, I'd be talking about it all the fucking time.
That's kind of true.
You know, if it was my vanity project, like, it wouldn't have been like, honestly, part of the idea was yours. You know, we both kind of had an idea. Like, that's I didn't even understand. You know, when you told that fat bastard it wasn't my vanity project, you should have said, but like, you know, half the idea was mine, you dickhead. Like, you know, if it wasn't for me, the site probably wouldn't even have existed because I need somebody to push my ass to do it. But it was my vanity project.
But, you know, and the other
coming
thing
from a
is
dude who will sell everything, and probably including his fucking mother if he could. Fucking sick
But it's
bastard.
a collective. But it's a collective. It's not just us putting stuff. If anything, more people have contributed than we have.
Yeah.
So it's dumb. Totally dumb.
Yeah, and everything's
Anyway. Everything. Oh,
Mario
that
doesn't exist.
Goodness.
Mario doesn't exist. That video, he's fake. That's what he's been AI from the beginning. Like, there's YouTube videos up there, you fucking idiot. It's AI.
Yeah. I had to show him receipts of actual, like, written work to show him that it wasn't.
Yeah, it was like, yo, there's published papers on this site from people that have had stuff published in other places, and you're making accusations that they used AI on that? Coming from somebody whose everything is AI?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to use AI. You won't leave your fucking basement. You need computers to do everything for you. All right, enough of that. But, yeah, these are all Lux pictures that I took myself at Yale. And, yeah, check them out on the site.
They're really good. There's so much detail. And the other thing, I think you mentioned on the other episode, if you look online for these, they do not have the same level of quality or detail as the ones that you took. And that's not, you know, I'm biased because we're talking about it. Genuinely, you can put them side by side and they do not have the same quality.
Oh, no, for sure, yeah. No, I mean, and, like, again, like, you know, not to pat myself on the back, but that was, like, really the main reason why I wanted to go, so I could put it up on a site for other people who are interested, that are into looking at the art or anything. Like, even this book, there's really no art in it, but, like, there's designs that go around the border. I took pictures, close-up pictures of that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it could mean something. Maybe somebody else sees something that I don't. But I try to get, like, you know, very good, detailed pictures. So it definitely, again, not to toot my own horn, it's better than what you can find on, like, these sites that just, like, you know, basically pop up a little thing. You know, these pictures are huge and they're good quality.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's, I mean, check it out. You don't have to take our word for it.
And then, yeah, so you have a little bit to say about this book,
I
right?
do, just a little bit. So in his other Von Chaos book, published in 1597, Khunrath tells the reader that he learned the secrets of the art by experience and the grace of God. So Khunrath was a prolific reader, and he received, apparently, his instruction from a certain learned master of the Kabbalah. So that learned master goes on to show him step by step the procedure of how to attain this. And he discusses this whole thing in Lux in Tenebris, which is the shining light in the darkness, which I think is so fitting because you think about, like, your pursuit and you're kind of finding your way through the dark, and then you find it and it's this, you know, shining light that's kind of helping you through your quest. And it details the work in his laboratory and describes a production of the Philosopher's Stone that is capable of transmuting both metals and the human body. So it was universal, so to speak. Lux is considered unique in that it allows a reader a peek into Khunrath's laboratory praxis and exposes the crucial source material for the alchemical process, which in all other of Khunrath's printed works remains veiled in accordance with alchemical custom. So most of Khunrath's work, he doesn't refer to it. And it's veiled, just like with all other alchemist books out there. It's kind of, you know, alluded to. And it is said that Lux basically tells you exactly what it is. It details a procedure and the process to attain it as well. I think in so much that other people of the time would ask for the book specifically, like to make body armor or things like that to incorporate into stuff for themselves. Like it was requested, it was a highly requested thing, even though there's not that many in print. So Lux opens up, the book itself opens up with two paraphrased and fused passages from the book of Daniel and Psalms, which you've mentioned Psalms a lot in terms of being significant, symbolic. And it's
you know, real quick, there's like even people that I know that like strictly just do psalm magic.
Yeah. So
I
I thought
think I
that
meant
was
to
very
mention that the last
interesting.
time we brought up like Psalms or something. I didn't mean to like mention like there's definitely like people. Oh, I do angel magic and only Psalms.
No, and so it brings to mind that if this is this book and it's leading you through attaining the philosopher's stone, that it would open up with that type of prayer, drawing in from that biblical section. And so he's kind of putting this forward as a grateful prayer to God for allowing him insight into the workings of nature. So referring back to Vom Chaos, Khunrath identifies the light mentioned in Psalms, and it's specifically Psalms 36:9. And again, we've talked about
369.
369, the vortex mathematical kind of concept, and he refers to this as the light of nature. And so it's almost again kind of coming full circle in giving it meaning, giving it actual tangentiality on that, which all true practitioners of Christian Kabbalah, divine magic, and alchemy have sought both in their Liber Mundi and within themselves, that lends them great power. So this dual aspect of the light of nature is also found in Khunrath's thought. And the light of nature is a source of an alchemist's knowledge and power that is found throughout creation, from angels to sunlight to the waters, Empyrean waters, and to the creatures and metals of the earth. And it's the actual everlasting spirit of God. He also goes on to mention that the fountain of life that is mentioned in Psalms is his prayer, basically denotes that it is the life imparting distillation process within the alchemist's vessel, which itself is the microcosm of God's creation. So I guess you kind of reductionist view in that sense of like you're talking about God and then kind of coming back down into that alchemist vessel in and of itself. So Khunrath continues with Lux in the customary condemnation of being in godless times. And true science of nature granted by God to humankind has been lost, and that there will be a wrath kind of by God to be brought down upon the society who only cares for their own selfish goals. And this is kind of the same sentiments that's happening, the loss of Prisca Sapentiae, which we find in the opening words of Fama Fraternis, one of the Rosicrucian books. And it's almost kind of, I don't know, symbolic in that he's also talking about that at that point in time. And then you see that kind of being one of the opening themes with one of the Rosicrucian books. So, however, in Khunrath's eyes, the old philosophers and magi amongst the pre-Christian pagans held the wonders of God's creation in higher esteem than the so-called Christians. And I like that because remember we talked about Meyer, how like he was very critical of alchemists and calling them out, the ones that were kind of, faux alchemists or something. I like that Khunrath is saying, what, pre-Christian pagans held God's wonders in better or higher regard than the actual people attending church. And to me, it almost felt like, way to call them out. I mean, call it like it is. So through their researches into the destruction and rebirth of metals, they not only came to recognize the manner in which the human body may similarly be reborn, but also became aware of the existence of the Holy Trinity. So he's talking about how pagans came to this knowledge as well. They didn't have to go into church and kneel and stand and kneel and stand. They basically sought it out through, the way he was in the laboratory. Not to say that science is better than going to church, but that you can find it through many means if you were sincere enough in the pursuit of it. Or at least that's kind of what I took from it. And
if you're consistently looking for something, you'll find it somehow.
I think so, yeah. Especially if it's pure, your intention is pure.
Yeah. For real.
In the late 5th century, Theosophia, for example, followed certain of the church fathers in claiming that the Sibylline oracular philosophies, wow, I don't think I said that right at all, oracular prophecies, and the wisdom of ancient theologians such as Orpheus demonstrated pagan foreknowledge of the coming of Christ, while as Pierre controversially attributed knowledge to the Trinity to Plato. So he's kind of giving this back between forth of giving this analogy of, support his theory on how these people who weren't, I guess, Christian themselves were actually on a right or path, or a path of better knowledge than the other ones that were kind of, puffing their chest as being, employed by it. So I think at the end of it all is that, Khunrath's innovation here basically suggests that the mysteries were actually revealed to the ancients through the art of alchemy. And he kind of gets into that with Lux. And there's this one paper, this one website that goes so in depth into Lux, and it's chock full of many really great references to it. But how Lux basically kind of starts to disappear throughout the timeline. You don't see it that often. It's not a very common book that you can find or that is even referred to when talking about Khunrath. You always hear of the amphitheater, but that Lux itself was one of those magician's book, you know what I mean? And that if you knew about it, you knew about it and you requested it because it had so many things in there that were of value, because it was more of a procedural book, and it kind of brought to mind all of his laboratory workings. And it might just be that, is that if you were not a physical alchemist, it wouldn't make any sense to you. Like it would maybe be lost onto you, kind of like somebody's laboratory book. You're like, what is this? I don't know what she's talking about. She's measuring out water in beakers, and what's a beaker, And so, whereas if you gravitate towards something that's more spiritual alchemy, it all kind of makes sense. It's more universal. You understand it. So I'm wondering if that was the case with Lux. So yeah, it was very, very interesting to read about that work of Heinrich.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is, like, again, the book. Want to take a look at it. It's up on the screen. I've been showing the last few pages. Again, with this book, I mean, most of it's really just all writing. If you can understand and read this stuff, again, not to push the site, but it is on the site. The whole book will be on the site. Because it was small enough, that's why I was like, I might as well just dump the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically, you could probably go there and save the pages and have your own.
Read it.
Yeah,
yourself.
your own version. Yeah, save it on
yeah.
your computer. I don't know. But yeah, here's the book, and that thing was old.
I love all the detailed artwork with it.
The art in his stuff is insane.
Yeah.
Especially in that amphitheater book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually very impressive.
Maybe you look at all of the detail that goes into the art itself, that what he's writing is so deep because of the amount of dedication that was added to, adorn it.
If I remember correctly, I think it's 1618, this book. So
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what it said. Mm-hmm.
But thank you very much. That actually, that perfect timing. Not too bad.
Good.
Yes. Probably would have been shorter if I was to shut up and didn't get off topic, but went on a couple of rants. But yeah, the second episode, like I said, if you can, I do highly suggest to take advantage of the video presentation. Like I said, I think the beginning will probably, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It may start off with us and then go into the photos, but it will be like in 4K, and when it comes to the book stuff, it should look pretty nice on the TV if you want to be able to see the artwork, big images. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that one. And that one should be dropping right after this one. You shouldn't be waiting or anything, because we plan on recording that one 3 days from now. Yes. Yeah, so we got that coming up. We have eventually Robert Flood. We have somebody else coming up. Got a couple other things in the works, too, that eventually we're going to get to. But, yeah, we got a lot of other exciting stuff coming up, especially like other stuff with JJ and BD Salerno. So,
yes.
Yeah, it should be, I don't think these things, like, I'm a month ahead right now on shows, so, like, I'm assuming, like, it won't really be going over, like, what I have planned in my head won't really be going over the summer, but Yeah, as people are out doing more things, and actually busy and enjoying their lives, there will be some really good stuff coming up on the podcast. Actually, if anything, when you're sitting on the beach, maybe listen to it. Then.
There you go.
Yeah, during
or
the
your
summer.
trek to the beach.
Yeah. Or when you're like, if you're like going on vacation or going somewhere or going to do something, then put it on. Yeah, perfect. But yeah, a lot of fun things that I'm looking forward to covering with a bunch of different people. The show's been really good and going in a good direction, and I'm trying to keep it that way, having certain groups of people that I can use for certain topics, and hopefully nobody ever gets tired of listening to the people. And the one good thing, it's the funny thing about that is that, like, I've known, like, a lot of shows, like, they'll try to do, like, round tables, or they'll do, like, 5 or 6 or sometimes even more, and it'll, like, start off great, and it'll be, like, bangers, and then all of a sudden, like, personalities start clashing and this and that. And, like, besides the fact that I think everybody that we work with, we all just get along really well anyway. But, like, the way that I split everybody up, I don't think everybody could have, that we all work with, like our little crew now that we've kind of grown. It's like, technically, if you look at it, it's probably like 9 to 10 people that consistently just are on the show.
Yeah.
They never all, like, work with each other to get sick with each other. You know what I'm saying? So, like, even that way, I believe I put thought into this. Even, like, the whole dynamic of, like, I don't think people will, like, start getting, like, angry with the next guy. And, like, this should last, like, a decent amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Create enough space between them.
Yeah. Except for poor
They'll actually
JJ.
miss each other.
I'm surprised JJ isn't tired of seeing my face already, man. I've been, like, hitting him over the head with constant stuff. But I love having him on. That's another thing.
Great chemistry. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
Great
that's another.
chemistry.
He's coming on to actually cover psychics that have solved crimes with BD Salerno.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and that's like something he's had like covered and done and everything. So, like, I know it was like something that interests him. He wasn't like an idea like, oh, I'll cover this on your show. He's like, oh, I've already had this like done. I was like, oh, that is awesome. Yeah. So that should be fun. So keep an eye out for that. But thank you, everybody who took the time out to listen to this. Again, I highly suggest to check out the second one on video. Again, even for this, if people are interested, we did show a bunch of books. The beginning, we showed some of the amphitheatrum. That art is very interesting. The other stuff, I'm going to be honest, it's just I'm showing you the style. I'm showing you the cover. I suggest still watching it on video, but yeah, I think you can get away with this one in audio. But again, the second one, I really think you'll miss out on not looking at it.
Agreed.
Thank you again, Lisa. I really appreciate you coming on. We always have a great time. We always do it well. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, later.